The phone call came while Marcus was elbow-deep in dishwater at O'Malley's Bar and Grill. "Mr. Patterson?" The voice was clinical, carefully neutral. "This is Dr. Reeves from Children's Medical Center. We need to discuss your son's surgery schedule." Marcus's hands stilled in the gray water, suds dripping from his fingers. Around him, the lunch rush clattered on, plates scraping, conversations overlapping, the hiss of the grill. He pressed the phone tighter to his ear. "I'm here. When can we schedule it?" A pause. "Mr. Patterson, we can't move forward until the outstanding balance is addressed. The surgery costs $47,000. Your insurance covers approximately 60%, but the remaining $18,800 needs to be paid before." "I'm working on it," Marcus interrupted. His reflection in the stainless steel shelf showed a man who'd aged a decade in 6 months, 32 but looking 50, with shadows under his eyes and the kind of exhaustion that settled into bones. "I just need a little more time. I understand this is difficult." The doctor's voice softened slightly. "But without the surgery, your son's condition will continue to deteriorate. The heart defect won't repair itself." As if Marcus didn't know. As if he didn't lie awake every night listening to Caleb's labored breathing through the thin apartment walls, counting each breath like prayer beads. "How much time do I have?" "We can hold the slot for 2 more weeks. After that." The sentence hum unfinished, heavy with implication. Marcus ended the call and stared at his pruned hands. $18,800. He'd been working 3 jobs since Caleb's mother left. Dishwasher at O'Malley's, overnight stocking at Walmart, weekend construction when he could get it. Every penny went to rent, Caleb's medications, and the growing mountain of medical bills. He'd already drained his savings, maxed out 2 credit cards, and been denied for every loan he'd applied for. Bad credit from his 20s, when he'd been young and stupid, now haunting him when it mattered most. "Patterson, table 6 needs bussing," his manager barked. Marcus dried his hands and got back to work. Let's rewind to 6 months earlier, when this really started. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday. Marcus remembered because Tuesdays were his short days. He only worked 2 jobs instead of 3, which meant he could pick Caleb up from school himself instead of relying on Mrs. Chin next door. Caleb had been complaining about chest pains for weeks. Marcus had assumed growing pains. His son was 8, shooting up fast, all gangly limbs and gap-toothed smile. But when Caleb collapsed during recess, the school called an ambulance. The cardiologist had kind eyes but a mouth that delivered devastating news. Ventricular septal defect, a hole in the heart. It's operable, but it needs to be done soon. His heart is working too hard to compensate. Without surgery, we're looking at heart failure. Marcus had nodded mechanically, holding Caleb's small hand while medical terms washed over him like cold water. The boy had looked so small in the hospital bed, wires snaking from his chest, his Star Wars t-shirt replaced by a thin gown. "We can fix this, Dad?" Caleb had asked. "Yeah, buddy, we'll fix it." But fixing it required money Marcus didn't have. Caleb's mother, Jennifer, had left 3 years ago, walked out without a word, leaving only a note that said she wasn't ready to be a parent. Marcus had been angry then. Now he was just tired. He tried everything. Set up a fundraising page online that raised $3,200. Generous strangers doing what they could, but nowhere near enough. Applied for assistance programs only to be told he made too much despite working himself to the bone. Spoke to hospital administrators about payment plans only to learn they required surgery payment up front. The 2-week deadline was now 5 days away. Marcus arrived at Children's Medical Center for Caleb's pre-op appointment even though they both knew the surgery wasn't happening. The hospital required it anyway. Bureaucracy grinding forward regardless of impossible circumstances. He'd left his dishwashing shift early, losing 3 hours of pay, and borrowed Mrs. Chen's car because his had died 2 months ago. Caleb sat in the passenger seat, quieter than usual, staring out at the gray October sky. "Dad," his voice was small. "Am I going to die?" Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No, absolutely not. But we can't afford the surgery. I'm figuring it out, Cal. I promise." Caleb nodded, but his hand moved to his chest in the unconscious gesture that had become habit, pressing where his heart struggled beneath his ribs. The hospital parking garage was full. Marcus circled level after level, his anxiety mounting with each passing minute. They were going to be late. He couldn't afford to be late, couldn't afford to give them any reason to. A black Mercedes SUV suddenly reversed out of a spot, and Marcus swung in gratefully. As he helped Caleb out of the car, he noticed the Mercedes had stopped a few spaces away. The driver, a man in an expensive charcoal suit, was on his phone, gesturing animatedly. Marcus guided Caleb toward the elevator, his son's hand small and cold in his. Inside the hospital, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of antiseptic mixed with cafeteria food. Caleb walked slowly, his breathing already labored from the short walk. Marcus kept his hand on his son's shoulder, studying him. They checked in at pediatric cardiology. The receptionist's smile was practiced, sympathetic. Dr. Reeves will see you shortly. There are some additional forms about the financial situation. I'll fill them out, Marcus said flatly. The forms might as well have been written in a foreign language. Every question was another way of asking. How will you pay? What assets can you liquidate? Have you considered all options? He'd considered them all. There were no options left. The waiting room was full of other parents with sick children, a universal club no one wanted membership in. Marcus watched a mother rock her infant, a father stare blankly at his phone, a grandmother whisper prayers under her breath. Caleb leaned against him, his breathing audible in the quiet. Each inhale was work, each exhale a small victory. Marcus wrapped his arm around his son's thin shoulders. Mr. Patterson? A nurse stood in the doorway. They followed her back through the maze of corridors to an examination room where Dr. Reeves waited, his expression professionally compassionate. How are we feeling, Caleb? He asked. Caleb shrugged, a gesture he'd learned from his father. The examination was routine, stethoscope to chest, blood pressure cuff, questions about symptoms. Marcus watched his son cooperate with the weary patience of a child who'd been through this too many times. Mr. Patterson, can we speak privately? Dr. Reeves finally asked. They stepped into the hallway. The doctor's face was grave. I've tried pushing back with administration, he said quietly. But the policy is firm. Without payment, we can't schedule the surgery. I'm sorry. I genuinely wish there was another way. So what am I supposed to do? Marcus's voice cracked. Just let him die? There are other hospitals, charity programs. I've tried everything. Marcus fought to keep his composure. I worked 3 jobs. I've sold everything I can sell. I've begged every assistance program in the state. Nobody will help us because I make too much money to qualify for aid but not enough to actually pay for the surgery. He laughed bitterly. The system is designed to let people like us fall through the cracks. Dr. Reeves looked away. I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't fix hearts. Marcus returned to the examination room. Caleb was swinging his legs from the table, studying a poster about the circulatory system with the intensity of someone trying to understand their own betraying body. Ready to go, buddy? The walk back through the hospital felt longer. Marcus's mind raced through impossible calculations. Maybe he could sell his father's watch, the only thing of value he owned. But that might bring $500 at most. He could ask his boss for an advance, though he'd already done that twice. He could. Excuse me. Marcus turned. The man in the charcoal suit from the parking garage stood behind them, slightly out of breath as if he'd been walking quickly. Up close, Marcus noticed details. Expensive watch, designer glasses, the kind of shoes that cost more than Marcus made in a month. I'm sorry to bother you, the man said. His eyes moved from Marcus to Caleb, and something in his expression shifted, a recognition of pain that transcended wealth. I couldn't help but overhear part of your conversation with Dr. Reeves. I was in the next room for my own appointment. Marcus stiffened. We're fine. Thank you. Please. I'm not trying to intrude. The man's voice was gentle but insistent. My name is David Chun. I'm a cardiac surgeon, actually, though not here. I'm just in town visiting family. He crouched down to Caleb's level. What's your name, son? Caleb, the boy said softly. That's a strong name. David stood again, addressing Marcus. Look, I know this is incredibly awkward, but I heard you mention the cost of surgery, and I'd like to help. Marcus's jaw tightened. We don't need charity. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering assistance. There's a difference. David's expression was earnest. 10 years ago, my daughter needed an emergency liver transplant. The surgery alone was $200,000. Our insurance covered most of it, but not all. We almost lost everything trying to save her. He paused. A stranger, someone I'd never met, heard about our situation and paid the remaining balance. $30,000. Wouldn't even tell us his name. That's a nice story, but my daughter is 17 now. Healthy, thriving, applying to colleges. David's voice grew firm. That stranger gave her a life. I promised myself that when I was in a position to help someone else the way we were helped, I would. No hesitation. Marcus shook his head. You don't understand. The surgery is almost $20,000. I heard. I'm prepared to cover it. The words hung in the air like something impossible. Marcus felt Caleb's hand tighten in his. Why? Marcus demanded. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. No, I don't. David pulled out his wallet, extracted a business card. But that stranger didn't owe us anything either. He did it because he could. Because sometimes the only thing standing between a child and their future is money. And that's the cruelest lottery of all. Marcus stared at the card. David Chun, MD, pediatric cardiac surgery, followed by hospital affiliations that suggested someone at the top of his field. I can't accept this, Marcus whispered. You can. And you will. Because your son needs that surgery, and your pride isn't worth his life. David's voice wasn't unkind, just honest. I'm going to walk to the administration office right now. You're going to come with me. We're going to settle this bill, and we're going to schedule your son's surgery. Marcus's legs felt unsteady as they walked toward the administration office. Caleb held his hand tightly, sensing something momentous was happening even if he didn't fully understand it. The woman behind the desk looked up with the practiced weariness of someone who dealt with desperate parents daily. How can I help you? David stepped forward. We're here to settle the account for Caleb Patterson's surgery. I'll be paying the outstanding balance in full. She blinked. Are you a family member? No, just someone who wants to help. Sir, I'll need to verify. David placed a black credit card on the counter. The amount is $18,800, correct? Charge it. The woman looked at Marcus, who nodded numbly. She typed on her computer, verified insurance information, processed the payment with an efficiency that suggested impossible things happen here more rarely than they should, but often enough to have a procedure. The balance is paid, she said finally, handing David a receipt. Dr. Reeves's office will contact you about scheduling. Just like that. Years of struggle, months of desperation, countless sleepless nights, resolved in 5 minutes because someone decided to care. Marcus's vision blurred. He turned away, pressing his palms against his eyes, trying to maintain composure in front of his son. But his shoulders shook with the force of relief, too powerful to contain. David's hand landed gently on his shoulder. It's okay. Let it out. I don't. Marcus's voice broke. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me. Just promise me something. David waited until Marcus met his eyes. When Caleb is healthy and you're back on your feet, maybe years from now, you'll help someone else who's drowning. Not necessarily with money. Maybe just time, or kindness, or witnessing their struggle. You'll be the person who shows up. Marcus nodded, unable to speak. Caleb tugged on David's sleeve. Are you going to fix my heart? David smiled, crouching down again. Not me personally, buddy. But Dr. Reeves is one of the best. He's going to make you good as new. Will it hurt? For a little while. But then you'll be able to run and play without getting tired. You'll be able to do all the things other kids do. David's eyes were kind. And your dad is going to be right there with you the whole time. The surgery was scheduled for the following Thursday. Marcus took the week off from all 3 jobs, something he'd never done before, and stayed with Caleb every moment. They watched movies, built Lego sets, talked about everything and nothing. The night before the surgery, as Caleb slept in his hospital bed, Marcus stood by the window and looked out at the city lights. Dr. Rees had walked him through the procedure, the risks, the recovery timeline. Everything felt surreal, a future that had been impossible, suddenly real and approaching. His phone buzzed. A text from David Chun. Thinking of you both. He's going to do great. They'd exchanged numbers at David's insistence. In case you need anything, he'd said. Marcus had been too overwhelmed to argue. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Marcus wore a path in the waiting room carpet, accepted terrible coffee from the volunteer card, tried to read the same magazine page 17 times. Dr. Reeves finally emerged, still in his surgical scrubs, his face tired but smiling. He did beautifully. The repair was successful. He'll need to take it easy for a few weeks, but he's going to make a full recovery. Marcus's knees buckled. A nurse guided him to a chair as relief crashed through him in waves. They let him see Caleb an hour later. His son looked small and pale beneath the white sheets, breathing tube still in place, monitors beeping steadily. But the sound of those beeps, regular, strong, consistent, was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever heard. He took Caleb's hand carefully, mindful of the four. "You did it, buddy. You're going to be okay." Recovery was slow but steady. Caleb came home after 5 days, moving gingerly but already looking healthier. Color returned to his cheeks. His breathing eased. Marcus took another week off, sleeping on the couch next to Caleb's bed, monitoring every breath until Dr. Rees finally told him to relax. "He's healing perfectly. You can stop hovering." "I'm his father. Hovering is my job." 3 months later, Marcus stood in the gym of Caleb's elementary school, watching his son play basketball for the first time in his life. Caleb moved with the uncoordinated enthusiasm of every 8-year-old, missing more shots than he made, but running without stopping, breathing without effort, alive in a way that had seemed impossible. David Chin stood beside him, having driven 2 hours to attend after Marcus sent him an invitation. "Look at him go," David said softly. "I still don't know how to repay you." "I told you. Pay it forward." David pulled an envelope from his jacket. "Actually, I have a favor to ask. There's a young mother in my hospital, single parent, working multiple jobs, can't afford her daughter's treatment. I'm covering the medical costs, but she needs help with living expenses while she takes time off for her daughter's recovery." He handed Marcus the envelope. "I thought maybe you could visit her. Share your story. Let her know she's not alone." Inside the envelope was a name, a hospital room number, and a handwritten note. "Sometimes the most valuable thing we can give is hope." Marcus looked at his son, pink-cheeked and laughing as he chased a basketball with his classmates. Then he looked at David, this stranger who'd become family, who taught him that miracles weren't about deserving them, but about humans choosing to be miracle makers for each other. "I'll go tomorrow," Marcus said. "Thank you." David smiled. "You know what the stranger who helped my family told me, years later when I finally tracked him down? He said watching us pay it forward was worth more than the money he'd spent. Said it proved that kindness multiplies." On the court, Caleb made his first basket. The gym erupted in cheers from parents who knew his story, who'd watched this impossible comeback. Caleb turned, searching the crowd for his father, his face splitting into a gap-toothed grin when their eyes met. Marcus waved back, his throat tight with gratitude. That night, after Caleb was asleep, Marcus sat at their small kitchen table and wrote a letter to David, thanking him, promising to honor the gift, committing to being someone who showed up. Then he researched the mother David had mentioned, learning about her daughter's battle with leukemia, her own struggle against a system that demanded payment before compassion. He would visit her tomorrow, share his story, offer hope, maybe help in small ways, groceries, time, presents. The cycle of kindness, continuing. Because in the end, that was the real surgery, not the one that fixed Caleb's heart, but the one that opened Marcus's eyes to a truth he'd forgotten in his exhaustion. That people could still choose each other, could still decide that a stranger's suffering mattered, could still believe that everyone deserved a fighting chance. Caleb's scar would fade but never fully disappear, a reminder of what he'd survived. Marcus had his own scars now, invisible but indelible. The knowledge of how close they'd come to losing everything, and how a single act of generosity had rewritten their entire future. He looked at the photo on their refrigerator, Caleb in his hospital gown on discharge day, holding a certificate Dr. Rees had made declaring him the bravest patient. His son's smile was radiant, his eyes bright with the particular joy of a child who'd been given his life back. Marcus whispered into the quiet apartment, "Thank you." And somewhere across the city, in a house Marcus had never seen, David Chin sat with his own daughter and told her about the boy who'd gotten his surgery, about the father who'd fought so hard, about how kindness circled back like water, finding its level. The story continuing, one heart at a time.